And before we start, I want to taste some of this ham. Have you ever purchased a giant bone-in ham, already smoked, good to go, just because it was on sale, and now you go, well, what the heck do I make with this? Welcome back to the Silly Kitchen. Today, I did just that. I purchased a giant bone-in, already smoked ham, and I am gonna batch cook a giant batch of ham and potato soup, and I'm taking you along with me. So the ingredient list is simple. A big giant ham, because we're making a huge batch of soup. You're gonna want to grab yourself 4-ish medium to large carrots. Don't chintz on the onion, this is a lot of flavor, so 2 large onions. 1 liter of either vegetable or chicken stock, your choice. Homemade stock, you guys know that I love making homemade stock, so if you need the recipe, look up here somewhere and I will link it over. And you need some peas. It's no longer pea season, so frozen peas it is, and you are pretty much set to go to start. There's a couple other little things that I will tell you to add in later as we go, but let's get started with the bulk of it. And before we start, I want to taste some of this ham. Salty and smoky and salty and delicious. Let's cook some soup. Did I forget to mention you also need potatoes in this recipe? Let's start by trimming some of the fat and skin off of this ham. Not all of it, but just a little bit. I don't want that much fat into this soup. The next thing you're gonna do is just cut around the bone and get some thick slices off of it as best as you can so that we can try to get some nice ham cubes. As best as you can, just figure out kind of getting some cuts off of that whole thing. It's gonna take you a while to get through the whole ham. And I like cubes, so I'm just cubing it as best as I can with these. The next thing we gotta do is slice up our onion. If you haven't done a dicing of an onion before, just watch. We keep the ends on, we peel around and take all that skin off. And then the next step in order to get good dices is you slice the way that I'm doing here 2 or 3 times, depending how big your onion is, and then we're gonna slice downwards. Flip it the other way and you have perfect dices. Do that with both of your onions. Carrots, we want those into a dice as well. The easiest way that I do it is slices around, and then to have a flat surface downward, we're gonna kind of stick them the other way and turn them around so that we have, again, nice little cubes, nice little dices for our soup. Easy peasy so far, right? We're just getting the prep work done. We're gonna put a little bit of butter in the bottom of our soup pan and let it melt, because we wanna add in the onions first and sweat them out until they're translucent. That's gonna take you maybe 2 or 3 minutes. When that's done, add in your ham, give it another stir, because I have a stirring obsession, so I just love to stir constantly. Your veggies go in, let's put in those carrots, another little stir, and here we go with some seasoning. Your salt, your pepper, and we've got to top it all up with our beautiful stock. While that's happening, let's slice up our potatoes. Same thing as the carrots, you're gonna slice, have a small surface on the bottom that's flat so that you can have cubes. Let's season with dry parsley flakes and add those potatoes in. Almost right away, there isn't a long period between. The final step is that I'd like to thicken up this soup a little bit. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a little bit of flour, and you can use sour cream, milk, yogurt, Greek yogurt. I'm gonna use Greek yogurt, and mix it in with the flour so that we can have the flavor of the yogurt and the thickening of the flour. and it kind of becomes a bit of a paste. So I use just a fork to mix it all around. And what I also did is I took a little bit of that broth out of the soup, and I'm gonna add that little by little to my sour cream and my flour mixture to get it to be a little bit more loosey-goosey, let's call it that. And then we're gonna go add it into the giant pot of soup. The next step is adding in your frozen peas, giving it a mix, and then adding in our yogurt and flour mixture to thicken the soup up. Another good stir, and we're gonna cover it and let it sit. After all is said and done, the soup will probably need to stay on the stovetop just simmering for about 45 minutes to an hour. After that, let it cool down, and because this is a huge batch of soup, what I do is I get these what I call soup containers. They're good for a lot of other things too, but I will then, after the soup has cooled, fill this with soup, close her up, label it so I know what it is, and put it in the freezer. And that way, anytime I don't feel like cooking or it's been a busy day, I pop this out of the freezer, kind of run hot water over it on the outside, which makes it easier to get the frozen soup out, and just put it back on the stove and reheat it. It is a flawless way to have a quick meal that you've already spent time preparing using real food, real ingredients, and delicious ham and potatoes. So I hope you enjoyed this recipe. Let's take a look at the final product, and I'm gonna plate some of this soup so that I can eat some. Thank you. Subscribe to this channel if you want to see more. Lots of tips, recipes, and delicious food coming your way.